And, oh yeah, and happy birthday, Oscar.
Thank you. You guys know what to do. Hi everybody, my name's Oscar, I'm an alcoholic. And I am honored to introduce Sarah. Sarah was introduced to me through a mutual friend. And I got to know her through service. When she became DCM for District 42 is when I started working with her. And over the years now, I've just gotten to know her and gotten to just have this real affection for Sarah. There's something really special about her. Watching her kind of go through and learning a little bit about what her life is like today, I see she's another example of staying sober no matter what. That's important. There's just certain people in this program that I think we get a challenge that maybe some people don't get. And they get to show us that we can walk through that stuff and we can stay sober. So I've not heard Sarah's story, so of course I want to hear that. Thank you.
Cry. It's weird hearing people talk about you. So we got 30 minutes here. Oh, you got me? I gotta see what I'm doing though. Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Sarah.
My sobriety date is May 15th, 2003. I have a sponsor here tonight. I have a service sponsor. I think they get together and they kind of try to keep me in check. Jenna, thanks for coming and being here tonight. Man, she got me a little teary-eyed too, you know. I definitely don't talk as fast as her, so if you think that that's happening for 30 minutes, it's not. Yeah, no, definitely sponsorship, working with Jenna and others is a bright spot in my life today. I sponsor women through the Big Book, and my home group is Drugstore S North in Shoreline at the Calvin Presbyterian Church every Friday at 8 o'clock. And we would love to see you there. I do service. My position at my home group right now is the cleanup person, and also just recently the Seattle intergroup rep. I volunteer and I do community service work as well for the less fortunate. Let's see. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I got a mom and a dad and a little sister. And, I grew up I had a really nice family. I had I had a good life as a kid. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I was born without a hand. That definitely has shaped the person I am today. It did not make me alcoholic, but it did affect the way that I felt about myself. My parents never treated me any different. As a kid, I was always encouraged and told I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I just remember silly things like being 5 years old and I would sit and I would practice tying my shoe over and over and over again until I got it. Like I was very determined, I was very strong-willed, and I was not going to let anything or anyone hold me down. And I've just kind of lived that way. That's just kind of who I am. I will say that despite that, I knew I was different. I knew I felt different. It's funny, I come into Alcoholics Anonymous and I hear a lot of people say that, I just felt different. I'm like, no, I literally was different. It would really be kind of irritating, to be honest. as of course you grow up and, become a teenager, all of that stuff is so, so important, how you look and what people think. And, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. And honestly, I don't remember my first drink. And I don't think it's really important. I just remember one day I was just an uncomfortable little kid, and then the next day, I'm a person who is a drinker. And that is how my high school years went. I would drink on the weekends with friends, drink, smoke pot, cigarettes. I immediately was getting into trouble. Drinking and driving and waking up in places I didn't know. I did not know at the time that was blacking out. I was a blackout drinker from the very beginning. I always was able to drink more than anyone else. I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't know that that's first stages of alcoholism. I didn't actually know what alcoholism is, to be totally honest. Like, it wasn't in my immediate family. Later, find out my aunt was an alcoholic. She actually got sober 5 years before me. But I'd see her, at functions, and she just looked like she was having a great time. I had no idea that was like how her alcoholism showed up. Mine showed up as an angry girl. And, through high school, I put my parents through a lot. They were scared on a very regular basis on whether they were going to see me the next morning. I would disappear. I would run away. I would wreck cars. By the time I was 17, I remember my mom, I had wrecked one of my friends' mom's cars. Don't ask how that happened, but I did. And they kicked me off their insurance, and they said, our insurance company has said that we can't insure you anymore. And, frankly, we can't trust what you're going to do. And we're tired of being like legally liable for your behavior. And would you like to be emancipated? And I thought, this sounds really cool. I'm going to be an adult now, and I was just full of delusion. I remember being up at the courthouse, and my parents and this judge in front of me, and I don't remember what he said, but it just was like Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah. And I'm like, yep, that's right. I'm going to be an adult, and this is great. And at this time, I'm heading into my senior year. I'd moved out of the house, and, I was living in, I would tell people later on that I had my own, apartment. I was, on my own now. And, truly, I was like renting out somebody's walk-in closet, and I would just tell people this was my apartment. It was really silly. My last year of high school, my parents really just wanted me to graduate, and they went up to my guidance counselor at high school and said, she's working full time, and, we just want her to graduate. And they put, I guess, my working hours towards high school credit, and I was graduated. So the last half of my senior year, I didn't do any of the things, that normal seniors do, right? I was working, and that was it. I drank and drove just about every day. I blacked out just about every day from that point on until I got sober. I never got in trouble. I never got a DUI. I don't know how. And I didn't really feel anything. And I guess that was kind of the point, right? I hear a lot of people talk about, I felt bad. I felt bad about myself, and I just kept drinking. I just didn't feel anything. I got to a point where some of the consequences were starting to, some of it kind of started to get to me a little bit. I was driving this one time in the middle of the night with my friend's little brother, and we're driving to Dick's Drive-In, and I take this corner a little too tight, and I ended up hitting a light post, and it was one of the newer ones where they just kind of fall over, right? And I get out of the car, and we just leave it and go walking around. And I remember my dad took me to see that car later on, and it hit the passenger side corner there, and he said, "You're lucky you didn't kill that boy." And there were moments like that that kind of started to really affect me, and I didn't like who I was. Living on my own in my own apartment didn't seem to be working out so great. I did end up moving back home into my parents' basement, and kind of got to that point again where they're like, we don't know what's going to happen, and this is really scary, and we can't have this happening anymore. You're going to have to either go be homeless or get sober. And my mom took me over to Res 12 to get an assessment. And I remember sitting there with this woman, and for the first time ever, I was honest about my drinking. I had had a few, I got pulled over this one time, and I had been racing my friend. I had this 1981 Honda Accord hatchback, and she had this souped up hot rod Honda, and we're racing down the street, and we get pulled over after being out drinking. And, you do the penny into the tongue trick. I don't know if that works or not, but I did it anyways. And, and I go to do the breathalyzer, and I was just a hair below the limit, right? So they let me go, but they gave me a negligent whatever in the whatever degree. And then I was off to the next bar. That was my solution. But I did have some legal repercussions, and I had some other drunks that were friends of mine that had some good lawyers, and they said, "Here, go see this guy," right? And so I knew what to do. I lied about my drinking, and I don't know why. That was just kind of a natural thing. I knew that this was what I needed to be doing. And then for whatever reason, it was not that way this time. The last year of my drinking was the worst. I was 21 years old, and I had barely been a legal drinker, and I had completely destroyed my life in that year. The last, that little gold Honda, I ended up wrecking, and I managed to get it home. And I don't know how, because I woke up the next day, and I went up to go drive it and drive my friend home, and here's my dad over me, wah, 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 and your car is totaled. And I remember just thinking, God, that night, that was the first time I was like, okay, I'm the designated driver tonight, which I didn't care about that word. I was going to drink and drive anyways. Didn't matter. I thought I was really good at it, actually. And I had more drinks than I had intended to. And that, there was a shift in my mind, what? How did that happen, And, and so I get home, and I remember just sitting there in my little basement in my mom's house, just crying for 3 days straight. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna try to get sober. And I think I lasted about 3 weeks. I was smoking pot the whole time, and I thought I was sober, and this is, fine. And it didn't work. Anytime I ever tried to get a few days or whatever, I'd be smoking pot, and then I'd always go back to the drink. Always back to the drink. And so now here we are 6 months later, and I'm sitting in Res 12 doing this assessment, and I'm telling the truth. And I remember my mom comes back in, and she starts to tell me and my mom, well, your daughter is a mid to late stage alcoholic, and if she doesn't do inpatient treatment, she's probably not going to make it. And I start bursting out laughing. I thought it was the silliest thing I'd ever heard. I didn't really know what an alcoholic was. I had heard, my dad had been, preaching at me for years about, do you want to be on Skid Row and under the bridge and all this stuff. And that's my idea of what an alcoholic was. I had no idea. And again, my aunt had been sober a few years at that point, and I had no idea that she was in AA. So I was on my mom's health insurance, and they didn't cover inpatient treatment, but we thought, okay, well, we'll try outpatient. And I said, okay, I'm willing to do it. I don't think I would be a very good homeless person, to be honest. I'm a little too, creature with comforts. I like that, and I thought, oh, okay, I better just, I'll play along, and we'll do this treatment thing, And so I picked out this little place, and they loved me there, and I loved being loved. So this was really good for me. I wanted to be there. They thought I wanted to be there, right? I wasn't like the rest of them there who had DUIs who were just trying to get their slip signed. And so that really worked for me. And I remember I went to my very first meeting. It was down Edmonds Group at the waterfront on Tuesday night. And I remember I walked in, and it was a big room, and they were all sitting in there. And it's just like my entire life. It's like wah wah wah. I don't pay attention to anything going on. They're opening the meeting, and then all of a sudden everybody gets up and they start scattering into these other rooms. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't pay attention. What? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And I go up to the woman that was chairing the meeting, and I say, in my standard snotty voice, like, I don't know where I'm supposed to be right now. And she's like, she just puts her arm around me, and she's like, well, honey, how much time do you have? I'm like, I don't know, a few days, and she's like, okay, come on. She like corrals me over into the first step room, and I remember the woman that was chairing the meeting, I didn't hear much of anything that entire night, but I remember she was talking about, tooting cocaine and this and that, and I just thought, this is not, I don't know, this was not for me. Like, these are old people, talking about weird stuff that, like, whatever. Like, I mean, I liked extracurricular activities, don't get me wrong, but like, that's not my problem. But something happened in that meeting. I don't know what it was. There's like a magic in Alcoholics Anonymous that is just pure miracle. I don't know how it works still. I remember, we get up and we do some chanting, and I bolted for the door. And before I even got to the parking lot, I'm just in tears. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening to me? There was something that just already was like moving and changing and shifting in me. And I had arranged my mom dropped me off at that meeting, because at this point I had wrecked my car. I had nothing. I was, riding my bike around and taking the bus and stuff. And I had told my cousin, because I'm still on the pot program, like I'm going to treatment, but they, think I want to be there, so they're not making me take any P tests and all that. And I had her pick me up so we could go smoke some pot, because I had to get rid of this feeling immediately. And, I went on like that for a little while. And, at some point, I sat down all my friends, my using friends, and I said, okay, listen, I'm getting sober, and you guys, I don't want to be around that, but if I do, if I'm feeling okay, I'll let you know, and then you can do that around me. And so they were like, yeah, whatever, we just want to support you. And, at this point, all of my drinking friends were like, you have a problem. Like, this is, yeah. And so this one time I got dropped off after treatment at one of their houses, and they were all partying, and I was stuck there. And they didn't tell me. They didn't tell me they were going to be using that night, and I was not prepared. It's just silly. Anyways, I realized, gosh, if I don't step away from this lifestyle, like, I'm not going to make it. And there was some sort of desire at that point. I wanted to make it, And then from that night on, I completely changed everything, and that's what they said to me when I first got sober. You have to change absolutely everything in your life. I got a home group. I got a service position in that home group. I moved into an Oxford house, started getting honest at treatment. I told my sponsor, I have this date and it's not real. And I've been smoking pot, and I was sure my home group was going to kick me out. I was sure I was going to get kicked out of treatment, kicked out of my Oxford house. And they just kind of came around me, and they just kept me. And that never really happened to me before, because what would happen, I had tons of different little friend groups, right? And I'd piss one off, I'd do some bad stuff, and I'd have to go leave for a little while, and I'd go hang out with these other people, and then eventually I'd come back around, and they kind of forgave me, and it was fine again, And like, I didn't have to run away, they just kind of kept me. So, I've been sober a long time, and, I've been sober longer than I drank. I drank for about 7 years, and when I got here, the old timers would tell me, oh, I spilled more than you drank, and, it's like that doesn't really matter. I called myself an alcoholic in Alcoholics Anonymous for a really long time, and I had no idea what that meant. I was about 4 years sober before I got a sponsor who took me through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was sicker than when I got here, and I wanted to die. And at at this point, I had found myself a newcomer. I'd gotten pregnant. I had a baby, and he didn't make it here. I mean, he's still alive, but he didn't stay. And I have a beautiful baby boy, and he's keeping me sober, and and I'm dying. I'm driving to work and wanting to drive my car off a bridge, and I'm like, if this is sobriety, I don't want it. And I found a woman who, something happened. She was really kind of scary and angry, and something happened. She changed, like before my eyes in a really short period of time. And I thought, okay, I got to ask her what to do, And so she sat down with me every week and read me the book, and writing in the margins and highlighting, and again, like the magic in Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't know exactly what happened. I mean, today I call it God. Back then, I had no idea. I had an experience that changed my life, and I've continued to work with other women and read the book, and I have a lot of really amazing stuff in my life today. I got married in Alcoholics Anonymous to my best friend. I've known him for 20 years. I joke that I am more sober than he is. He came in 6 months after me. We've been like friends, like for a really long time, but we started dating about 8 years ago. We've been married for 4, and I just, and I think, Jenna kind of said it. The things that are important in my life today, the things that are happening in my life today, I would have never thought, like not just in my drinking, but even in early sobriety, that I would have the things that I have today. In sobriety, I joined the OSAT sober hiking group, and I did the glacier climbing course, and I got to climb Mount Rainier. I summited Mount Rainier. A girl with no hand summiting Mount Rainier. I mean, that's crazy. I got to go back to college, and I did an internship, and I went to Peru, and I went, hiking at 16,000 feet, and, put in, power system in this little village of Marconi, and, and I have family today. I have repaired the relationships in my family, those first few amends where, I sit down and I, tell my parents and all these people, like they didn't really want to hear it. Not that they didn't believe that things had changed or whatever, but it's like, it's not about the words. Like I did the work. I showed up and I did the direct amends, and it has taken years to really grow into who I am, a woman of integrity. And, I've had, really miraculous, change in my relationships. I was just talking to my sponsor about the relationship with my mom. For the longest time, her and I have always butted heads. We are so similar. It's, crazy. And, me and my sister have always competed, and she always gave her more attention. And, it's like that has been completely changed. That relationship is completely just in the last couple of years, and I've showed up for her in a completely different way, with no motive of, well, I want attention like my sister, and, all of that stuff is just melted away. My husband has a son who's on the autism spectrum. And this last year we got full custody of him. He was in a really unsafe situation. And, I remember when my husband first moved in, we moved in together, and he was still pretty young. He's about 11 now. And, I didn't know anything about autism, to be honest. And he's grown and changed quite a bit. But at that time, he He wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't talk. And I was not great. I had a huge judgment. I mean, my son, I raised him, and he, I was kind of a boss. I was, I was kind of a bossy boss. Like, I was the older sister. I always kind of took care of, we were latchkey kids. I was in charge, right? And so I'm used to that. And my son is used to very, structured lifestyle. And now here I have this child that just does not respond to that at all. And I just was really resentful. Like, this kid wouldn't say good morning. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Like, just, all of it. It was just strange to me. And I remember thinking, okay, I have to do something different. And I remember I would write the St. Francis prayer on my mirror. And I would say it every day until I had it memorized. And I would say it over and over and over. And it came to me one day, I need to go and I need to say good morning to him. Stop waiting for him to look at you and say good morning. He's not going to do it, And I'd leave to go to work every day, and he'd be sitting up at the table eating breakfast. And I'd say, good morning, Hudson. Never look at me. Never look at me. And I'd walk out the door, and I did it every day, every day, every day. And I remember this one day, he looked up from his plate and he looked at me and he looked back down, and I was like, it's working. It's like I recognize that, I have an attitude problem. I am full of selfish, self-centered fear. And it's like the name of the game is serenity. And, how can I be of service to others? And I can't do that when I'm angry, and I've been angry my entire life. I remember when I first got here, I used to ride this bike around everywhere to meetings, everywhere I went. And, for years, like, people come in telling me, I remember you on that bike. You were so angry. It's like, thank you for telling me that. Like, I remember that. Like, not the same way you do, but thank you for telling me. It's like, it's still in there. If I let it come out, that person is still there. I have a mother-in-law today who, and I call her my mother-in-law, but she's actually my son's grandma, my ex's. She's like a mom to me. I have built relationships that are absolutely amazing, and this woman is just, she's done more for me than I deserve. And she came in today at this place that I volunteer at, and she was talking about this resentment that she had. And I don't know what happened, but it just kind of fell out of my mouth. I said, have you ever thought about praying for him? And she was like, and she's a woman of faith, and she just kind of looked at me and she was like, I knew you were going to tell me something to do, and it's like, these things, like, they just kind of come out, and it's like, I don't know where that came from. And it happens all the time, I believe that, God lives in people. I have to stay connected to you guys. I've, the last, several years now, with things that have been going on at home with the kids, busy lives, like, I have not been able to show up, and just hang out after a meeting until midnight in the parking lot. That was so fun. They're going up to Sherry's and having pie, doing all of those fun things. Like, I just don't have the luxury to do that today, and my sponsor reminds me, this is why we got sober, right? We show up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then we take that home, and so that's what I've been doing. But I don't stray far. I have never gone without going to meetings and having a sponsor and working with other women. I have to keep you guys really close. I had I recently spoke at the Bellevue speaker meeting, and in this meeting, there's a couple sections of rows, and there's a middle aisle right down the middle. And I remember right before I got up to go speak, and I looked right down the aisle, and there's a woman sitting against the wall, and she, like, uncanny, looked like my sponsee who had just passed away. And I was shook. I was shook the entire time. If you're lucky enough, you get to grow up and grow old in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it is a blessing, to have these, these emotions today. I never had them. The only thing I ever felt was anger and fear, and I am full of love in my life and in my heart today. Last story, I'll just talk a little bit about my dog. So this is I had this dog that I got a few years ago, and he came into our family's life when we needed to have that kind of love that you just get from an animal, and he healed us and he helped us, and he passed away suddenly in June, very young, and and it shook me. I mean, I have had moments in my sobriety where I am like, the ground is not underneath my feet, and I am shaky. Not because I want to drink, but I just don't want to feel the way that I'm feeling right now. And and what it came down to is, this being, came into our lives in a time when we really needed him, and now, now it's done, and there's got to be something new. And so anyways, another opportunity for spiritual growth. I can see, I've made this dog my higher power, and now I got to go really get clear about who I am, who I am with God and who I am without God. So I'm really grateful for the blessings and opportunities to do that today. I appreciate being asked to come up here and the opportunity to remember who I am and where I come from, and I don't ever want to forget where that is. So thank you for having me.